What does the future hold for Arizona basketball's top-rated recruit?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. This show is brought to you today by FanDuel. All kinds of good stuff at FanDuel. Check it out. Let me find that little, there you go, the little insignia. All right, let's get to some Arizona basketball recruiting, what exactly everybody needs to know about everything that is going on right now. Now, here's the deal. Joson Sanon, he is an incredibly talented recruit. He's very, very good, and he can do pretty much everything on the court. He can make the three. He can get to the bucket. He's got a body that was made to play basketball. He's probably going to play in the NBA for a very, very long time. He's also talented enough to be able to go where absolutely ever he wants in the country. He is that type of player. Now, when he committed to Arizona a while back, I think everybody was kind of saying, okay, well, yeah, we'll take it. But this is kind of a unique situation as well because he is in this day and age of NIL and everything that's going on there, you are generally, a lot of times, especially if you've got handlers, agents around, you're probably going to go to the highest bidder. Now, when Joson Sanon committed to the University of Arizona, he was expected to probably take Caleb Love's spot. And because Caleb Love, I think everybody thought was probably going to go off to the NBA. But it's looking more and more likely like Caleb Love is going to come back to the U of A. And that is something that is very, very good for the University of Arizona for a variety of reasons. First, anytime you can get one of the 10 best players in college basketball to come back for another year, you take it. You don't ask any questions. You take it, especially when he's not a character concern. He gets along well with his teammates. There's a variety of different reasons that you bring a player like Caleb Love back. And keep in mind, too, this wouldn't even really be possible a year or two from now because the COVID seniors would be gone. But he is very much in that COVID realm, and Tommy Lloyd and staff would love to have him back. Now, is Love a perfect player? No, of course he's not, because he'd be in the NBA if he wasn't. He can be wildly erratic, but overall, I think he was very good for what Arizona wanted. He got his field goal percentages up into the low 40s. I think the next step is hopefully getting into the mid 40s, but there's a great chance that he will come back. And from a Caleb Love perspective, why in the world would you not come back? Because with NIL now, you can probably make $500,000 coming back to play for the U of A, and you can be one of the faces of college basketball again. You take that and you run with that, especially if you're not guaranteed to play in the NBA, because it's kind of like the RJ Davis situation. Really good college players, but they're limited, probably not going to play in the NBA, and that is okay. That is not the worst thing in the world. You can live with that. But the next step, though, I think, is Joson Sanon. Now, he keeps a lot of people are saying, well, what about his tweets? He's tweeting out that, he had a great talk with Caleb Love and all of this. Well, there's another elephant in the room here. Joson Sanon is not coming here to come off the bench, and he's never once mentioned KJ Lewis, who is also coming back to play for the U of A. And KJ Lewis should start. And the people out there, they're like, well, why doesn't KJ come off the bench? He's not coming back to come off the bench. And the staff would much rather have KJ Lewis to begin with. And so that puts Sanon into a sixth man role. I would personally be okay with that. And I think he should as well, because there's a lot of five-star kids that go off to the NBA. I mean, heck, look at Kentucky. Half those guys that are all NBA players, it seems, didn't even start. But I don't believe that he is going to be okay with that. I don't believe the people around him, which we will return to, will be okay with that. And there is like I said, it kind of makes sense. That's also why you see Arizona adding players like an Anthony Del Orso. Now, if the coaching staff thought that he was going to be coming back, Do you think that Joson Sanon was coming in? Do you think they're adding Anthony Del Orso, or do you think they're starting to look at other players? No, I do not think so. That would not be the case. So there is that. And then we're going to get into some other players as well. But you've also got to remember, though, too, that we're in the day and era where, when there's a lot of money being thrown around, these kids have agents. Now, some of these kids' agents know what they're talking about. They're, are looking out for the kids' best interest. Some of them are just looking to get paid, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this isn't just the situation where you're just recruiting the player and the parents or the AAU coach anymore. You're dealing with people that want money, and they want a lot of money, and they want guaranteed roles, and you're dealing with people that I don't know that you can necessarily trust. And so, again, Arizona would have loved to have had Joson Sanon back, when this all started, but things change. Just like in life, things change. Now, he hasn't decommitted, and I will say that if he does show up on campus, I will be the first one to say that I was totally wrong, but I do not see that happening under any – I would be stunned if Joson Sanon showed up on campus, and I do not care about tweets. I get people all the time. There's like, well, what about a tweet that was put out here or there? It doesn't mean anything to me. Because, I can come up with a billion different coaches who say, I have no interest in that job. And then a day later, they're taking the job. Tweets mean nothing to me, especially with kids are not really the ones that are taking control of these situations. They have adults that are many times making these decisions for them. So I would expect Joson Sanon to go somewhere else. I think he's going to get paid a boatload of money. And again, he's a talented kid. He's got a lot of really nice skills, and I think that he's going to be good. But if it comes down to, do you want Caleb Love or Joson Sanon for a year, you're going to take Caleb Love. Because again, when you're dealing with freshmen, you don't know what they're going to get. I mean, look at some of these, look at some of the freshmen. Josh Green was higher rated than Joson Sanon coming in. Would you take a freshman year Josh Green over Caleb Love? No. And I can come up with a bunch of different ones. Kobe Simmons, kind of the same thing. Raleigh Alkins, kind of the same thing. Would you really take any of those dudes over Caleb Love? No, because Caleb Love's better and he's a proven commodity. You know what you've got with Caleb Love. So that's kind of where it is with Sanon. Now, again, I do think Sanon is going to be a good player in college, and I think that he's probably going to go off to the NBA at some point, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a good NBA player as well. Now, when people ask, well, what are the chances that he reclassifies to 2025? I would say next to zero, because would you? And second of all, I think kids want to get paid at some point. There's it doesn't really behoove anybody, especially when you're already older to begin with. It doesn't really behoove anybody to be held back a year. Because man, that's just a year where I could be making $300-400 extra $1,000 for. So reclassifying is not something that I see happening at all. And so Arizona, I think, has some other options that are going to be coming in place here fairly soon, and we will talk about those. But like I said, I would be very, very surprised if Joson Sanon shows up at the U of A. We're just in a different era now, where you deal with an agent, or you're dealing with some people that aren't necessarily trustworthy, and sometimes you're just not necessarily sometimes the people around just aren't necessarily a good fit. And I don't know that, with what Tommy Lloyd is doing here at the U of A, where I think he's really pushing for kind of a family environment, a lot of people that kind of see eye to eye, that get along with each other. I don't know that he's really looking for something that's going to upset the apple cart in a way that, just certain things that you don't know, maybe when you take a commitment, where they could possibly end up. So that is pretty much where we are at with Joson Sanon. But again, very, 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 very talented player, and somebody that theoretically would be great in Tommy Lloyd's system. But there's also more that goes into it. Do not worry about Arizona, because we are going to talk about that in a second. And what somebody like a Miles Kelly could possibly bring is another possible addition. But first, let's talk about Yahoo Finance. All right, Yahoo Finance. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is where it is at. Now, listen, there is a guy in the media here, in the local media here, that knows nothing about sports, and I think he would probably admit that to you. You probably watch him on the news from time to time. He knows nothing about sports, but he is very, very much dialed into his finance. You will sit next to him at a presser, and he will be looking at his finance, and he will be using Yahoo Finance. That is what he does. He's a smart guy when it comes to finance. He is using Yahoo. So again, check it out. Yahoo Finance. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now. Let's talk about the rest of this Arizona basketball roster, and we'll talk about a possible another name. So let's just assume Joson Sanon is not here. Then we would have at the point guard spot, you got Jaden Bradley. Love Jaden Bradley. Obviously, he's going to be playing 30-plus minutes per game. Assuming Caleb Love comes back, you're going to be dealing with somebody playing 30-plus minutes per game as well there. And then KJ Lewis obviously has announced that he's back. There's 30 minutes as well. So those three spots, you've got 120 minutes. You got what, 90 minutes, let's say 90 minutes of those are taken up. So then you got a little bit extra. You've got Anthony Del Orso, who I think is probably going to play, 10, 15 minutes per game, maybe something like that. Maybe he swings back into the backup point guard role a little bit. Could certainly see that. And then Carter Bryant, but I also think Carter Bryant is going to get a lot of minutes at the 4 as well. I think Carter Bryant's probably going to be in that 20-minute realm, but I think he's probably going to get half of those on the perimeter, and I think he's going to get half of those inside. And then the following year, I think he's going to be a monster and play 30 minutes per game on the perimeter. Very much I think his freshman year, it'll be a little bit different from style, but I think it's going to be very much like a KJ Lewis type year where, you play a little bit everywhere, but you're probably getting about 15 minutes per game, something like that, 15, 20 minutes per game. But that's where it's at. But that perimeter, without even adding anybody, that perimeter is absolutely stacked. I mean, you go around college basketball and look at the best perimeters in the country, you're not going to find a lot better perimeters than that perimeter of Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, and Caleb Love. You're just not. And then you also have then an Anthony Del Orso who's coming in off the bench. And then you got another, Carter Bryant as well. And then you've got another possibility with somebody who we are going to talk about there in a second. But the perimeter is stacked. And again, this is a team that I think can rightfully have national championship aspirations. Now, there's going to be teams that are going to be better than them. But when you're looking at the top 10 to 12 teams in college basketball for this coming year, guess what? Arizona is going to be in there. Not only is Arizona going to be in there, they are going to be squarely in the fold. And I think that will be something that will be very, very enjoyable to watch, especially in the Big 12. But now you would like to be able to add, I think, one more player than at that point. And Miles Kelly, this is somebody to keep a very, very close eye on. He is a transfer from Georgia Tech. Obviously, last year played for Damon Stoudemire. He is averaged 15 points per game 2 years ago, 14 points this past year. Now, he is not uber efficient. That is for sure. He was actually much more efficient as a sophomore than he was as a junior. Field goal percentage this past year was bad. Not good, like 37%. But as we've seen, Tommy Lloyd also has a way of coaching offense and getting guys to be a little bit more, let's just say, a little bit more efficient than maybe they were in the previous years. I mean, he did that with Caleb Love. Again, Caleb Love, 5 percentage points up. Maybe he's thinking he could do that with Miles Kelly, especially too, because Miles Kelly was not fairly efficient. That's too strong of a term, but as a sophomore, he was much more efficient. So kind of a catch and shoot player. And he's somebody that likes to shoot threes. He hunts his threes, and he is long. Defensively, he can give you some versatility as well athletically. There's some stuff to really like about him. Now, there's going to be a couple questions that are going to come into play here. What exactly do you do defensively what exactly do you do from a minutes perspective? Because this is a guy that's been starting in the ACC. I don't know that. I think it won't be the easiest sell in the world to tell him, hey, dude, come here and you can play 20 minutes per game. So they're going to have to figure that one out and exactly how that works, which would probably be the biggest impediment. But who knows? I mean, Lloyd could also sell him on, We're going to make you more efficient. We're going to try to get you some more money in the process by showing that you can be a 3-and-D type player. And who knows, maybe he comes and he surprises and he basically forces his way onto the court. And you've got to have lineups where he is out there on the court. Maybe he's kind of your small ball 4 at points with Townsend or Awaka. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just surmising. But there's probably ways to be able to sell him on some stuff. But it'll be interesting to see what his interests are really, because if he's looking to play, guaranteed 30 minutes per game, I think it's going to be very difficult for Arizona to be able to guarantee that for him. So we will find that out. But I think he'd be a nice addition. If you had him, then I think your roster is pretty much set at that point. You would have, at the point guard spot, you would have Jaden Bradley is going to be backed up by Caleb Love. And then you would have Caleb Love, you would have Del Orso, you would possibly have Miles Kelly as well at that wing. The wing is also, you got KJ Lewis, Miles Kelly, Carter Bryant. Del Orso can fit in there as well. There's a lot to like. I mean, there is a lot to like with that lineup, and I think that Arizona could do a lot worse than that lineup. So, and then up front, obviously, you've got Mount Crevis, you've got Trey Townsend, and then you've got Tobe Awaka, and then you've also got Henry Vasar. I have no clue what to expect out of Henry Vasar this year. I'll believe it when I see it, but Tommy Lloyd obviously likes Henry, and he believes that Henry can make an impact. Emmanuel Stephen, I believe, is going to redshirt. Again, I think that he's more of a Christian Coloco type that's going to take some time, and there is nothing wrong with that. Again, Christian Coloco, I think there's a lot of people that would like to have Christian Coloco. Well, Christian Coloco certainly turned out okay. Let's just use it. Let's just put it like that as far from a basketball perspective. So, but that's a good team. Now, again, I don't think that that's Kansas good, where you've got DeJuan Harris, Mayo, AJ Storr, Dickinson, Adams, the top 10 big man coming off the bench, and a variety of different other dudes. I also don't know that it's probably as good as Houston or maybe Baylor, but it's right there. That is a team that is good enough to be able to cut down the nets, period. And at Arizona, that's what you're looking for. I don't think that you ever really want to go into a season where you're like, man, I can't really envision this team winning a championship under any circumstances. This is another team that, they're going to have to be tougher come March, but I do believe they are going to be tougher. I'm very much like a lineup where you get Boswell out. Listen, the last couple of years, you've had kind of soft players at the point. You had Boswell and you had Kerr. I think Jaden Bradley's cut from a little bit different cloth than those guys, and I think that is going to kind of rub off on the rest of the team. But overall, I think it's going to be a fantastic team, and Miles Kelly, like I said, is probably the next name to keep an eye on. He's got talent. It'll just be interesting to see what kind of role he wants to play here at the University of Arizona, and that's not something that I can answer. I don't really know what the case is there, what he's looking at, but we certainly will know that one quickly enough. Now, we're going to get into some baseball, softball, and maybe a little bit of football. But first, FanDuel. FanDuel, check it out. All right, basketball is almost over. Boo. Football's over. Boo. But guess what? It's still enjoyable to bet on things with FanDuel. Check out FanDuel, my friends. FanDuel.com/lockedon. This is it's a lot of fun. And another one of these ones where you will thank me later. With FanDuel, you can bet on all kinds of stuff. And guess what? Even if you're not interested, you will not have a problem, because when you have money in the game, you'll be okay with it. And I think that FanDuel is right where you want it to be. So again, check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now. Let's talk a little bit Arizona baseball. All right, team, got to keep giving these guys some credit. Team Chip here. Now, Arizona, listen, this is kind of the SEC bias coming in, but even if Arizona wins the Pac-12 tournament, there's a chance they might not even host. Boo, that is stupid. But Arizona, I think, is going to have the opportunity to be able to maybe surprise some people. We will find this one out. But Pitching can carry you come postseason. We've seen that in pros. We've seen that in college. Kevin Vance's squad, especially in that game where you had to be able to keep the runs down, was able to do just that. We will be able to find out, I think, come here in the next couple of days. We're going to find out where exactly Arizona is with that. So Arizona baseball certainly on good footing. Then you got Arizona softball on good footing as well. Now they're going into they just pummeled the heck out of some teams. Now it'll be interesting to see, can they get back to the College Softball World Series? We're going to find that out. They're going to have some tough games coming up, but this has been a nice little renaissance here, I think, for Arizona softball. And it just goes to show you, too, that I think that obviously the days of just running roughshod over everybody, those are pretty much over. And the reason that they're pretty much over is that everything has kind of been evened out with money, facilities, and people grow up wanting to play at a bunch of different schools, where in the past it was just Arizona and UCLA. So that's a little bit different. The house that Candrea built is kind of it's a little bit now probably like the house that Wooden built, and that UCLA can still be at the forefront, but the days of just running championship after championship after championship, those days are over. I mean, that's just kind of the progression of society. But either way, Arizona baseball and Arizona softball both playing very, very well. We will continue to keep you updated on that. And Arizona football, we are some of the preseason rankings are starting to come out. ESPN has Arizona at 20. I believe that is too low. I believe the national prognosticators are going to be wrong on Arizona again. Because, listen, the previous year, Arizona was expected to win 2.5 games. Guess what? They won 5. The year after that, they were expected to win 5. They won 10. Now, this year, I believe it's 7.5. I don't think that they can get to 15 unless they run the table. That would be fantastic, by the way. We'll continue to double you up. If that did happen, then Arizona is winning the national championship. But I do like Arizona with the over 7 or the over 7.5. I think that, and we're going to talk about this probably a little bit tomorrow, but I think that with Brent Brennan, I think 9-10 wins has to be the bare minimum. You have a really, really talented roster that you've got to continue to build with. And there's probably not going to be chances with, guys like, a Noah Fifita, a T-Mac, a Tacario Davis, players like that. So you've got to be able to take advantage of that. I think that Arizona is going to be able to take advantage of it, but this is also one of these ones that we will see as we go. But again, I do think that Arizona's got to be in that 9-10 win realm, because then Arizona doesn't have a ton of inherent built-in advantages. You've got to be able to win those games, I think, to be able to continue your, recruiting. Brennan and his staff, I think they're solid. I don't know that there's anything necessarily sexy about this staff. It's going to bring in a multitude of other players. So got to obviously keep that one in mind. But I do think that Arizona is going to have a possibility of being very good. And I think that the roster certainly indicates that they should. Like I said, we're going to talk about that a lot more tomorrow. But today, really wanted to hit on Joson Sanon and where the deal is. Again, if he shows up on campus, I will gladly say that I was wrong and that I had no clue what I was talking about this. But I will believe this one when I see it. That's kind of where we're at with Arizona basketball. Joson Sanon, I would expect good news from Caleb Love here sooner than later. And Arizona basketball is going to be ready to rock and roll. But again, Miles Kelly, another name to keep in mind. We'll be talking more Arizona football tomorrow, and probably some Arizona baseball and softball as well. But as always, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A. We will be back with you tomorrow.